What is going on, you guys? So in this video, I'm going to be going over my 5 tips for beginner growers. Now, I know when I started growing, I did not know where to start, what to learn first, and there's a lot of things that I've gone through in the past 5 to 6 years growing that I thought I would share with you to hopefully help you not make the same mistakes as I did. Tip number 1 is going to be focus on the things that you can control. I started out in a tent in my garage where I couldn't control the temperature, the humidity. I couldn't control really anything environmentally in a tent. So I deep dived into understanding and learning the medium that I was growing in. Whether you're in soil, cocoa, rockwool, hydro, your medium is gonna be a very good place to start. It is a weed, so it can grow in any conditions, really. I mean, I've grown harvest during the winter where it never got above 68 degrees in my garage. Yeah, I did see issues because it was so cold and it did slow down the growth of everything, but I was able to dial in the medium and still have really good harvests, whether it was really cold or really hot during the summer. I mean, it's gotten up to 100 degrees in my tents, and I still was able to pump out good harvests just because I understood what my medium needed. That is tip number 1, is pay attention to what you can control. Tip number 2 is going to be pot size. Now, when I started, I was doing 2 plants. I was in a 5x5 tent. I put them in 10-gallon pots. Now, learning, I overwatered because I was thinking I'm in my garden every day. I'm waiting for the light to pop on, watering it when it doesn't need water. And if you're in 10-gallon pots, you're not gonna be watering more than once a week, depending on your environment and the size of your plant and how long you've vegged. But for me, I was trying to fill up like a small portion of that 5x5 in a 10-gallon pot. I've learned over the years that my style of growing, I like to do more plants in smaller pots and smaller plants. So I would veg in 2-gallon pots and then transplant into 3 to 5-gallon pots as my final resting place for those plants. And I would do multiples. I would recommend going no more than 5-gallon pots in a grow tent. That way you're watering every other day, or you can understand and learn and have a watering regimen found in the 10-gallon pots. It was tough if something were to come up, like I overfed or I underfed. I would have to wait until I could water to try to fix those things. I could flush, but I was in a tent. I couldn't extract the water that I was flushing with, so I would have to wait until the medium dried up, and that could take a week, 5 days, 6 days, sometimes longer. And in a smaller pot that you know is going to dry out in your environment in 1.5 days, it's a lot easier to control that root zone, in my opinion, when you are watering every other day to every day. That is tip number 2, is consider your pot size when you're growing in a tent. Tip number 3 is going to be bug prevention. I've had to completely annihilate 3 runs because of aphids, because of spider mites, because of thrips. And I've just learned over the years that from the moment you take your clone, you start a prevention maintenance spray or root drench. I use IPM from Athena, and before that it was plant therapy. I would go in there twice a week, do a foliar spray from the moment I took clones all the way up until about week 2 of flower. Many people have asked me what I recommend when they have mites, and that it pretty much comes down to how long do you want to battle them until you actually decide to start over. For me, I took everything out of the grow room, I sprayed everything down, I cleaned everything, I bug bombed, and I let my grow room sit for 6 months before I put something new in. And so that put me back almost 8 months, 9 months. I didn't even make it through that harvest. Let everything sit out for 6 months, and then once I brought new stuff in, it hasn't been as bad ever since. I would typically do 2 foliar sprays per week and 1 root drench just to stay on top of it. Tip number 4 I have for you is start small. Don't jump in and try to grow a bunch of plants without ever having grown before. It is a dedication, it is a lot of work, and just start small, 1 to 2 plants. See if you like it, see if you can stay on top of the watering schedule, see if you can stay on top of the maintenance that it takes. Learn the steps throughout flower that you need to take. The lollipopping, the de-leafing that needs to happen. Just see if you can stay on top of that and then move forward from there. I don't know how many times my friends have been like, I'm gonna start growing. I give them a clone, I give them a couple seeds, I ask them a few months down the road, hey, how are those plants? And they say, oh, I wanted to go on vacation, so they died. Or I forgot to water them one time and they wilted and they died. It takes a lot of work to start a plant and see it all the way through. And from day 1, you're gonna be vegging for 1 to 2 months. It takes 2 to 3 months to flower out, and then it takes a few weeks to dry and then to cure. So you're looking at your very first run. It's going to take 6 to 7 months before you see an end product. And typically also what happens is people see how hard it is, and then that end product isn't as good as they want and they give up. But I know for a fact if you do it more than once and you just keep dedicating yourself to this craft, it will get better through and through. It's sort of disappointing to go through all of that hard work that you put in your first grow and then not be happy with the product that you have. I knew it was a hobby for me. I knew it was just for fun, so I just kept doing it. And for me, doing it as a hobby, I did it for fun. I just tried to learn something after every harvest or after every run and try to fix it in the next one. But yeah, that's my tip number 4, you guys. It's just start small. Don't jump in with an entire grow because you will get overwhelmed. It will be hard, and you probably won't learn anything by trying to do a lot at once. Tip number 5, you guys. It's not really a tip, but I'm gonna let you guys know some of my favorite products that I've used over the years. Starting with Honeycomb from Emerald Harvest. It is a sweetener and trichome producer, and it is absolutely amazing. I've used tons of sweeteners. I've completely cut out honeycomb before on certain strains that I've grown with it, and the noticeable difference that I found just by using honeycomb was amazing. So you can use honeycomb with any line that you're using. I've used it with multiple lines and I've seen the same results. But yeah, honeycomb from Emerald Harvest, go pick it up. It will change your life. It's a little bit expensive, I would say. I think it's 8 milliliters per gallon of honeycomb. And when you're mixing tanks, it can go by pretty quick. But if you're just mixing 1 to 2 gallons at a time, you could probably get away with one of those sample packs for a run just to see how it works. My favorite LED grow lights that I have used in the past 6 years, and I've used quite a few from different brands, same manufacturers, just different models. My number 1 favorite light that I have used is going to be the Gavita 1700E. Now, I have stayed away from buying more of them just because of the adapter that you have to get if you want to daisy chain them together. To me, the price and the return wasn't good enough for me to purchase more. But the best results that I have seen consistently with different strains will be the Gavita 1700E. And the second light that I have used that is my favorite is the ThinkGrow Model H. It's an excellent light, 2 light spectrums, veg, flower, and then it has a far red also. So if you like to mess around with that far red, it has that also. The LED fixture itself is sort of cheaply made compared to a few other LED companies out there, but it packs a lot of benefits. So those are my two favorite lights that I have used in the past, and I've used a bunch. I've had sponsors or people send me lights to test, and those are the two that I've paid for myself and that I like the most. My favorite nutrient line is Athena. Now, I've used probably 5 or 6 different nutrient lines, and I have found that Athena was the most simple and it produced the best bud. Now, I did incorporate honeycomb in it as well. They said you don't need to add anything, but I did run it without it and I did run it with it, and I feel like the honeycomb added quite a bit to it as well. But yeah, guys, those are just a few of the tips that I have for beginner growers. And it's taken me 5 to 6 years to learn a few of these things. They're definitely not my top 5 tips, but some tips to think about just starting out. That could have saved me months and months and months of struggling to get through. But yeah, guys, that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.